Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you listen to this episode 234 of the Tree Talk podcast in association with Noel's Menswear. Delighted to be joined as always by Matt Callan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. I'm Jack Neville and we'll be joined by a guest from behind enemy lines as Limerick and Cork prepare for a do-or-die battle in the Gaelic grounds this Sunday. That'll take up much of the discussion this morning. We'll also have a bit of ladies football, Camogie and Tailteann Cup to get through, so stay tuned for all that and more.
The impression of the game you get out of it, what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomás O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it hard.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
As I said at the start, Matt, we're joined from Cork by Diarmuid Sheehan, who will give us the view from the Rebels ahead of this do-or-die clash on Sunday. Diarmuid, how are you keeping?
I'm great. Thanks very much, Jack. Thanks for having me on episode 234.
Yeah, we were
Good morning, Dermot.
A while waiting to get
Well
you
done,
on, Diarmuid. I suppose huge game this Sunday. There's no point putting it two ways. Limerick versus Cork, Gaelic grounds at 4 o'clock. Only one can go through, which will be a first for this Munster round robin. They've in 2018, 19 and last year, the Limerick and Cork have both got through. So it's palpable in the build-up, Diarmuid, isn't it?
Oh, it's hard to describe it really. I suppose from a Cork point of view, disappointment after Sunday's result, obviously. But that quickly turned to, we've one chance to go through. Unfortunately, it's Limerick that we have to play and we have to face and we have to beat. Well, technically, I suppose we don't have to beat them. We have to draw, but you're not going to go into a hurling game looking for a draw. So, it's going to be a great occasion. It has to be. I presume there won't be a ticket to be had. I'd say every Cork man who can get these hands on a ticket, or Cork woman for that matter, will get their hands on a ticket, will get one. But there probably won't be that many free around Shannon's side, I assume.
No, I don't think so. And I suppose it's one thing John Kiley had kind of half alluded to is the importance of the crowd on Sunday. And from a Limerick point of view, it could be a first time leaving the championship in Munster. But same for Cork, because obviously we've had the back door in the provinces for the last 20 years. So it's kind of unimaginable that on the 27th or 8th of May, Limerick or Cork will be gone from the Munster Championship.
Oh, I think it's astonishing. I suppose yet again, that what I call the joke or the standing joke in Cork is that yet again the footballers could be in the race for an All-Ireland glory longer than the hurlers, and who would have thought that? Look, I don't think anybody would have predicted whatever about Cork's participation going in the long run in the championship. I don't think anyone would have predicted that Limerick were one game away from going out in May. So look, I think it's built up. The GAA and the Munster Council, I don't think anyone could have actually asked for this to go any better. It's been an absolutely savage championship, and it's coming down to the wire. And while Waterford have been, I suppose, a disappointment to many, they still have a say in what happens. And God, who would have thought it? Would have thought it at the start of the championship?
Yeah, is there any possibility of a Waterford favour, do you think?
No, I wouldn't think so. I suppose look, anything is possible. And in fairness to the Daisha and everybody around there, they must be really hurting. They've had an appalling championship. But really, you just can't see it. Look, if Tipperary want to be All-Ireland champions, if they want to progress, they want to get to the Munster final, they should be able to beat Waterford based on what we've seen before. Waterford look in disarray, and it doesn't give anybody. Nobody takes solace, or nobody takes enjoyment in the fact of one of the major counties in Munster is struggling at the moment. But it's very difficult to see them being able to do anything this weekend.
Yeah, obviously, if Tipperary beat Waterford, Limerick and Cork will be a straight shootout for third place. But if you do get a fare from Waterford, there's a chance at a Munster final there. If Tipperary lose, are you echoing Diarmuid's sentiments there and saying there's no hope?
Yeah, look, on the face of it, Diarmuid is right. I don't expect that Waterford will beat Tipperary. Like Tipperary's, Pat has been mapped out for them now. They've done the hard work. They've gone to Innis and they've won. They have gone to Cork and they've drawn, and they have drawn with the All-Ireland champions. And now, are they going to let struggling Waterford prevent them from getting to the Munster final? I can't see it happening, Jack. I don't think it's a realistic proposition. It's not on for me. And this is no disrespect to Waterford. I think that we should focus on what's going to happen in the Gaelic grounds and a probable shootout for third place.
Yeah, and that I think it's fair enough to assume that it will be for third place. What's your own feeling just going into the game, considering like Limerick haven't been in this position before, and after the league, and we'll touch on the league, that you would never have thought this would be the scenario, but this is the situation Limerick find themselves in. It is do or die.
Oh, it's do or die. It's do or die because John Kiely has been at pains for anyone that was prepared to heed him or listen to him before the championship, that this was going to be one of the most competitive championships, and this is what it has transpired to be. And like you would have said, if you were analysing the prospects of teams as we did in this forum before the championship started, and if you were basing it on league form, you would have said it would have to be Cork and Limerick, and I stuck to my guns on that right up to last week. I think that would be going through, and strictly because of league form. All right, Cork lost to Kilkenny in the semi-final of the league, but it'd been hugely impressive during the league. But I suppose if you delve into why that was, a lot of it was that you had a new manager coming in. He was blooded a lot of players, and obviously a lot of players were trying to catch the eye of the manager. And I would probably say that in terms of preparation for the start of 2023, the Cork might have been ahead of the rest because of, as I said, a new manager factor. But we also spoke, Jack, if you recall, about league form very, very often, more often than not now. And if we see in recent years, isn't a guide to the champion much of a guide to the championship, especially like when you just come off a league campaign and are straight into a championship campaign. And I think that those two extra games in the league, with Tipperary and Kilkenny, whilst Limerick picked up very, very valuable silverware, and we shouldn't discount for 1 minute the value and the glory of winning a league. But in terms of preparation for the championship, I think it possibly absorbed a lot of energy out of the Limerick side and out of the Limerick squad as they prepared for the championship, and like they were into the helter-skelter of the Munster Championship 2 weeks after beating Kilkenny.
Yeah, and both teams, I think it's fair to say, have failed to find their rhythm, Diarmuid. Obviously, from a Limerick point of view, they're a nice bit off the pace. But Cork as well, were slow to start. Obviously beat Waterford, but, that Waterford were on a down after losing Limerick. They struggled for large periods against Tip and still could have won the game. And it's the same with Ennis, but haven't hit the ground, haven't been the team that we expect from Cork this year. I think it's fair to say. No,
I think you're very right there, Jack. I think, but it's this goes back a lot further than this year. Cork have, in recent years, really struggled to put 70+ minutes together. They're a hugely impressive side when they have the ball in hand and they're running at you. But you can't do that for 70+ minutes. And I think, look, everyone knows you can't dominate a game for the entire game, particularly when you're playing teams like Tipperary and going to Ennis and playing Clare. But you have to, when the period comes where you're not the dominant side, you can't let sides get a run on you. And that seems to be what's happening. Cork are shipping 1-6, 1-7, 1-8 in 10, 11-minute periods. And they're finding it so hard then they have to do so much work to get back into games. You know, previously, and we've seen it against Limerick in the past, Cork have struggled to get off the mark early in a game. Again, they struggled a little bit in Cusack Park last weekend. They left, I think it was 3 or 4 points before they got going. But look, they got back into that. But again, just before half-time, shipped 1-2, 1-3, 1-4 without response. And all of a sudden, they're up against it again. There's no question, they have ability, they have everything you'd need. They have ability, they have passion. Potentially the only thing they don't have is physicality. Now they're getting better. The likes of Tim O'Mahony, I think, brings great physicality there around the middle. I think the young fella 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘠 has been a revelation this year. Found it a little bit of a struggle last Sunday. But I think it's the physicality is where we're struggling. I think the new manager, as Matt stated, Pat Ryan, I think he's been a serious positive force for Cork. And he will leave no stone unturned this weekend, none whatsoever. I think he'll be ruthless if he needs to be. I hope he'll be ruthless in his team selection. And I think he'll try and get them to a level where they can at least front up to Limerick. I would expect this weekend, I would expect to see Cork front up to Limerick. If they don't, I think they'll be beaten.
It's an interesting point there on the physicality, because we've seen Tip and Clare go toe-to-toe with Limerick, you know, and really put it up to them. But just expand on your point there about the fast start, because it was a decent start by Cork against, I suppose, Tipperary and Clare, but never really built on it. And Limerick have been the same. The only game they started really well was Waterford, and they ended up winning that game. And obviously Cork were very good against Waterford. But how important is a good start on Sunday with the two teams kind of lacking in a bit of confidence, I'd say, judging by their performance, that, you know, if they see themselves going behind, that they might think this is it, or if conversely, if they go ahead, they'll be looking at the other team saying, let's lay down a marker and get so far ahead that their heads drop. That, you know, it's always important to get a fast start. But this Sunday really seems like a game that if you get ahead, you could stay ahead for the whole game.
I suppose, at the risk of contradicting myself in what I was saying, a fast start is obviously hugely important, right? But for Cork, they don't need a fast start. They just need not to let Limerick get a run on them. So as opposed to them requiring a fast start, what they actually need is to make sure that Limerick don't get a fast start. You know, if Cork are still in this game at half-time, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and they haven't let Limerick run at them, bully them, and get into one of those periods where, you know, Kyle Hayes knocks over 3 points from distance and all of a sudden they're 4, 5, 6 points behind, you know, and chasing. If they can avoid that, they have every chance here. But they have to. So I would say it's more 70, 75 minutes of consistency rather than needing, you know, a 10-minute burst at the start. Because invariably what seems to be happening is that 10-minute burst at the start is being followed by 15 minutes of sluggishness. And therein lies the problem.
Yeah. Matt, you know, Diarmuid has said there about the fast start. But again, it's probably more so who can be the more consistent over the 70 minutes, is it?
Yeah, I suppose it's you know, at the end of the day, you can talk about the fast start all you like, but it's who finishes the strongest that you know, that ultimately decides most games. But Diarmuid touched on a few things there, and he talked about man up to Limerick, and I think the one ingredient that probably Cork are missing to a certain degree, but they have improved on it, is their physicality. And, you know, physicality is so important when playing Limerick. But I think, having said that, that has been offset by a newfound resilience in Cork. Because if you see, if you take the game against Tipperary, they went 5 points down late in the game and came back. Against Clare at one stage in the second half on Sunday, they were 8 points down. And came back, and I take the point that Dermot is making, that they shouldn't be letting themselves get into these positions, but they certainly have a newfound resilience, because Cork teams in the past would have succumbed in those circumstances. But yeah, look, a fast start is important, very, very important. But look, Limerick and Cork have been around for so long that a fast start by one or the other isn't going to derail the other, you know, and they're too experienced for that. But I would be more, you know, far more concerned with a strong finish, and very, very importantly so. And John Kiley touched on it last Sunday, Jack, and you were there, about the importance of those coming off the bench, and this may very well decide this game. And like heretofore, as we saw in the All-Ireland semi-final in 2018, when Seamus Harnedy had to come back on limping, Cork were devoid of a bench, but like that has all changed. Because if you see who they sprung from the bench last Sunday: Shane Kingston, Ger Millerick, Shane Barrett, Timmy Mahoney, as Dermot referenced there earlier on, Brian Hayes, you know, like both benches are very, very, very strong. Like the Limerick bench was the envy of all counties, but I think that's something that other counties have closed the gap. They've closed the gap in physicality, other counties, and they've also closed the gap in the strength of their respective benches.
Yeah, it's something I'll throw to you there, Diarmuid, because it was noticeable watching Clare and Cork, seeing those calibre of players coming on. First and foremost, can you see any of those boys starting? Because we know Ger Millerick has had a good record, and when he was missing in 21, it was an awful pity for him. And Shane Kingston has a good record against Limerick as well. So do you think Pat Ryan will leave those in reserve, or do you think we could see a few from the start?
I know that I've spoken to Matt on a few occasions. Matt's a big Ger Millerick fan. So he probably won't want him to start, right? Yeah, look, Cork are... look, there's absolutely no question. I had the privilege of, like most of us, interviewing managers over the years, and John Meyler. I spoke to John Meyler after he released his book, I think it was 2021, and asked him what his biggest regret was. And you won't be surprised, his biggest regret, I'd say it was nearly in his life, but definitely in his managerial life, was that 2018 game above in Croke Park, and his lack of a bench. And I suppose, without blaming Mr. Harnedy, the aforementioned Mr. Harnedy, you know, Cork didn't have to bring on an injured player that day, you know, but they chose to do that. And I think Meyler informed me that day that was his biggest regret, and that not having a bench. And I know he spoke in the press conference after that game about Cork's lack of a bench, and that was something that he was going to try and address. Obviously, we're two more managers down the road now, and I think if you look at Cork's bench, I think Cork's bench stands up to Limerick's bench. I don't think there's any question about that. You mentioned already Tim O'Mahony, or I mentioned Tim O'Mahony, Alan Cadigan, Shane Kingston, Shane Barrett. These are great players, but they're not all playing, like, at the risk of singling one out, I don't think Shane Barrett has played very well after playing a superb league. I think he's struggled. I think Brian Hayes is a great player. I think Kingston, to go back to the question you asked me 5 minutes ago, and I've been rambling, Kingston is the great unknown. Like, do you play him? He's a wonderful player. Do you start him, or do you bring him off the bench? Every time you bring him off the bench, you know, he gets 3, 4, 5 points. He knocks it over his left shoulder, his right shoulder. And you'd say, well, this guy should be starting. You know, he's put his hand up every time, but every time he's left on the bench. I think that he is a super player. And while I don't believe in super subs in any shape or form, he's nearly boxed himself in there now, that he's the kind of player that's probably going to come in off the bench. I am a huge Tim O'Mahony fan. I'm from North Cork, and with Tim O'Mahony is from Newtown Shandrum, he's also from North Cork. I just think that young fella has bulked up and become such a strong presence in any half-back, full-back, even midfield line that Cork has even played wing forward. I think I'd nearly try and find a place for him, because they're going to need somebody like Tim O'Mahony, because, you know, look, as I've said before, they've struggled physically against Limerick. There's no question about that. We know that. 2000 and, like, you know, Matt was the one who mentioned 2018, and that lives long with this team. There's still 8 of the guys who are going to play next weekend, up to 10 who were involved in that. But then there's also, I think there's 11 fellas who were involved in the 2021 hiding in Croke Park. And, you know, these players, they're proud players, and they won't be happy about this, you know, and they'll see this as their chance. And if you would have asked Pat Ryan at the start of this championship if he could go to the Gaelic grounds for a one-off game with Limerick to put Limerick out and put Cork through, I'd say he'd have taken the hand off you. And I think that Cork's bench, as we've spoken about Tim O'Mahony, we've Owen Downey now has come through, and like Owen Downey has given Cork what they didn't have for years, which was an alternative full-back. And that seems to have brought Damien Cahalane on, who's played some really good games this year. And I for one, would have been quite critical of Damien Cahalane over the years, but he deserves his start now. He's played really well. I think, you know, I think Limerick is a big one. I don't know if Limerick will start or not. I think Kingston probably won't start. I'd say he's a victim of his own success off the bench. Downey probably won't start because Cahalane is holding that spot, and I don't know. Will he try Shane Barrett? I think in corner forward he might, but as of this stage, I could see the same 15 that played Clare lining out again.
Yeah, and Matt, I'll leave you jump in a minute now. I know I'm holding there for a while, but it's interesting. All those boys you mentioned there have an awful lot of speed. It's just a team that run through the Cork side. And then for Limerick, we mentioned their physicality. And it's been a funny game in recent years that even though there's such contrasting styles, you know, you had the big wins for Limerick in the All-Ireland final, obviously, and 2022 last year, there was a heavy win in the park. But in the league last year, Cork completely overran Limerick just with their pure running game. That it's such a strange game to call because there's such different sides. And you're talking about if Cork can match up physically, and for us it'll be, can Limerick live with Cork's speed, that you just really don't know how this game is going to pan out. I'll get 𝘕𝘬𝘬𝘬 to jump in there.
I thought it was Matt. As far as I think at this stage, right, that Cork would. I think Cork have improved. Of that, there's no doubt. I think they're, you know, unfortunately they lost in Ennis the other day. I actually think they're a better team than Clare. I think that they're up there in the top 2-3 in the country. I think, you know, a disrespected league kind of showed that for long periods. I think that Pat Ryan has got them going in the right direction. I'm not saying that Mr. Kingston before him hadn't, but I think they've made substantial leaps forward in their panel. I think in their tactics. However, Cork are a running team, right? That's the way they play the game. They go for, we'll say, what I call lighter, faster hurlers. Limerick don't go that way. They're more, there's many words I can use. They're physical. They're a more physical side, obviously, than Cork, right? Can they live with Cork? Well, I think they've shown over the last number of years they most certainly can live with Cork. I don't think there's any question about that. The question is, can Cork live with Limerick? Like, you know, I'm looking there at you look at the Limerick team that lined out the other day, right? And while, you know, like all of us, a lot of them have become household names. when you look at the likes of, you know, a Casey, a Morrissey, a Burns, a Hannon, you know, a Hagerty, a Lynch, Morrissey, Gillane, Flanagan, and Casey. If you were to go out and pick 15 hurlers from anywhere in the country to put a dream team together, you know, pretty much all of them would be on it, right? We don't have that luxury. What we have is, I'd say at this stage, what Cork have is they're fed up of losing to Limerick when it matters. I think they believe that they can beat them. I think they believe that they can beat them in the Gaelic grounds. And I think that, I genuinely think, even though the bookies will disagree with me, I think they've a great chance. Do I think they're favourites? No. Do I think that they'll need Limerick to be off the boil a bit? Yes, I do think that. I think if both teams come in and play to their best game, I think Cork lose. I think Cork need Limerick out of the championship to win the All-Ireland Championship. And this is their chance.
Yeah, it's a big chance. Matt, I'll throw it to you there for a second because I've hugged Diarmuid to myself there for a while.
Yeah, well, like John Kiely is going to have a small bit of a selection dilemma. First of all, he had a bit of a selection dilemma last week in replacing Sean Finn, but I suppose it was clear cut that Mikey Casey was going to come in. It was just a question of where in the full back line he was going to come in. Now, the dilemma that he faces in terms of selection going into the Cork game is that after the performance in Thurles last Sunday, Cathal O'Neill has to be accommodated on the starting 15. When a guy comes in, he comes in as a late replacement for Peter Casey, and he scores 5 points from play. And we saw a very, very, very important cameo performance by Graham Mulcahy. 2 points, setting up another vital point at a vital stage in the game. But certainly, John Kiely has food for thought coming into the game. How will the game go? I think it's going to be very, very tight. Limerick have shown incremental, as John Kiely said, incremental improvement from Waterford to Clare, from Clare to Tipperary. They'll have to show more for Cork. I think they're capable of doing it, but it's not what you're capable of doing on the day, it's what you do on the day. I think if Limerick play to their potential, they'll win. If not, they're in trouble.
Yeah, I think both of you are on the same page there in terms of if the sides can play to their best, it's Limerick, but anything less than that will provide an opening for Cork. For you, Matt, key matchups, is there any one or two that stand out? Anything that Limerick definitely need to get right, or anything Cork need to get right in terms of players?
Well, an important matchup, I think, and Damien touched on it there, will be who will be picking up Seamus Flanagan, who seems to revel in playing against Cork now. I know Damien Cahalane has had some very good performances this year, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes against Seamus Flanagan. They'll also, of course, will be who will pick up Aaron Gillane. Will it be a direct Sean O'Donoghue, the team captain? I think it will be very, very important. And again, Dermot touched on it. He's a player that I have absolutely the utmost respect for, and I think he's going to be an absolutely fantastic player, is that Kieran Joyce is not allowed to impose himself on the game, which he can do. And despite what Dermot says, he did so for quite a while on Sunday, but maybe didn't do so for the 70 minutes. The battle at midfield is going to be very, very interesting. Dara Fitzgibbon did not have the same level of performance the last day as he had against Waterford and Tipperary when he was outstanding. it'll be very, very interesting if he comes up against 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘪𝘠𝘬𝘯𝘴. Look, if you look at the cast on both sides, Jack, and see the potential matchups, there's going to be a myriad of them around the place.
Oh yeah, it's very exciting to see how the teams match up. I suppose Matt spoke there about two Limerick forwards in particular. For you, Diarmuid, the Cork forwards, obviously Patrick Horgan has been reinstated, but who do you see as, I suppose, the match winners and the ones that Limerick do really need to keep close tabs on?
Yeah, I suppose I go back to what Matt said. We talk about the forwards, but I think Darragh Fitzgibbon's contribution or potential contribution to this game will be massive. I think Fitzgibbon with the ball in his hand running is pretty much an unstoppable force. He doesn't do it all the time. Obviously, the better teams will focus on him, but he can rack up 3, 4, 5 points very quickly from midfield. He can get a goal for you. I think up front, Horgan is obviously massive for Cork. I think, and I will say that I would have been happy enough with the decision not to play him from the start every time last year. I thought that he was, I genuinely thought like some people thought, he might be coming to the twilight of his career, but the man has just flown out of the traps again this year. Great goal last weekend after a poor penalty. I think he's obviously going to knock over pretty much every free he's offered. And I think he might be offered quite a few frees up there. I think for me, Seamus Harnedy and Declan Dalton are the two players that can win this for Cork. I think Dalton has really come into his own in the last 12 months, 18 months. From a player that was a bit part player to now, one of the starters, one of the first on the team sheet. I think Dalton is he gives you everything. He's physical. He can knock frees over from his own half. He can from play. He can score from anywhere. And he's, as we saw the weekend, but we've seen numerous times, he's good to get a goal. I think Harnedy has been outstanding this year. Another player that I thought was coming to the twilight of his career, I suppose. Age-wise, he is, but again, just his ability to just inspire the team. If Harnedy knocks over a point in the first minute, the fist goes up. If he knocks over a point in the 70th minute, it's the same thing. He's on it from the start. Look, these players are going to be targeted, are going to be man-marked out by Limerick, as one would expect, right? For me, Cork's strength is in the spine, straight up the middle. I think from Cahalane needs to play well. Patrick Collins in goals needs to find his man. Cahalane needs to play well. I think Joyce, this is going to be the biggest test Joyce has faced so far, and I think he needs to. I think he'll stand up. I think he learnt from last weekend. There was a few mistakes, but you know what? He's only a young fella, and he's playing at a seriously high level now. I think Fitzgibbon through the middle. I think Harnedy at centre forward and Horgan at full forward. That's a pretty impressive spine to any team. They just need to work it. They just need to work it through. If we've a solid look, go back to 2018, 2021, 2020, any year you want to pick, Cork struggles started with their backline, right? And I think while all woes haven't been put to the side, they have a much better backline and a much more solid set seven from midfield back than they've had for many a year. And I think, so it's focus now will start turning on the forwards to see what they can do. Again, I think Horgan, Conor Lehan can be in and out, to be fair. Luke Meade, again, are we going to see Kingston start, Barrett start? I don't. I think that they won't. I think as I said earlier on, I think we'll go with the same 15 or very close to the same 15. And I think that's kind of where it comes down to. Conor Cahalane is another young fella with great potential, but we need to start seeing more than potential now at this stage.
Yeah, it's a stacked team, whatever way you look at it. We went through it in depth there, Matt. I think you want to get in one before we let Diarmuid
Yeah,
go?
just 2 points I want to make, Jack. We've name dropped players from both sides there. I think probably Limerick's most influential player in the championship to date has been Tom Morrissey.
Yeah.
Who's been absolutely outstanding in every game, and like the way he moves around and the ground he covers, he's going to be very very hard to match and to mark, and it'll be very interesting to see who will Cork delegate to pick up Tom Morrissey, because whoever it is going to be in for a very busy evening. He will see an awful lot of the Gaelic grounds. And the second point I want to make, just a little nugget of information that I came here, and I just throw it out to Diarmuid as well. That Diarmuid Burns has scored 198 in the championship, and is the leading defender, leading scorer from defence. The leading, he has surpassed Seanie McMahon, who scored 97 points in his career with Clare, and he has played, I think, 15 or 16 games less to date. So Diarmuid Burns is a very, very important part of a very, very important.
We've lost Matt there.
Part of Limerick's ammunition. When you get, from the half-back line, I know a lot of them are from frees, but he's stroking him over from play as well. Very, very important player.
Yeah, no, Diarmuid is hugely important. There's no doubt in that. And look, it could be a case where someone comes out of the blue that you're not expecting a huge game from, and it could be because it's anyone's game, as we said. But before you go, Diarmuid, who will win and why?
Well, it depends. I can answer that. I can answer that two ways. I have to live here, Who will win and why? I think Limerick will win. And I think Limerick have to win. Of that, they don't win, they're out. I think that they need to put in their best performance of the year so far. I don't think there's any question about that. I think that they will win because I think the physicality. I think that I mentioned it already. I just don't think we're at that level yet. Of physicality, of just our game is an exciting game. It's always been an exciting game. Cork in full flow. Red's a primary colour for a reason. Cork in full flow is an impressive sight. I think that a packed stadium will suit them. I think they need to get, we mentioned a fast start. It doesn't need to be a fast start, but they just cannot go behind early. They cannot go, behind by more than a couple of points early. They have to be able to stick at this. I think that they're capable. But I think the bookies rarely get these things wrong. And I think that looking at Limerick, you'd have to say that they're favourites, and they're justifiable favourites. And it's unfortunate from a Cork point of view that it's come down to this game. But again, I go back to the point I made earlier on. If you offered Pat Ryan one chance to go through and take out Limerick at the start of this season, he would have taken it. I'd say no problem whatsoever. So I think that there's belief there. I think the Cork will have to play the best game that not only that they've played this year, but the best game they've played in years. I think that history is against them. I think that pretty much everything's against them, actually, if you come to think of it. But I think that, a packed house, full of people in green with a smattering of red here and there, I think might just suit them, right? But I think, look, ultimately, you'd have to say that Limerick are favourites. Limerick are the likely winners. And if they do win, I hope it's by a small margin. I don't want to see Cork getting a pasting here, because they don't deserve that actually at this stage. Whereas I think that I can't see a draw. I don't see a draw, and I suppose I don't see Limerick going out this early either. So for me, I think it's Limerick going through and Cork unfortunately going out, and we'll just have to turn our attention to the big ball. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure you won't be too disheartened to be wrong if your prediction doesn't come true and there's I think there's a slight bit of cuteness in your answer as well. But Matt, I'm sure you would be agreeing.
I was just about to weep for Dermot there. Just about, the tears were coming.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a very emotional time for us, Matt. It's very emotional. You know, as I say, we started with a win. We had a draw, which we could have won. We had a loss, which we could have drawn, and we could have won. You know, and all of a sudden you find yourself playing the All-Ireland champions and looking like, you know, and up against it. And, you know, listen, Matt, I've listened to you now for long enough. You don't need any pointers on playing the poor mouth with me. You know, poor. I was listening to you there at the start talking about poor Limerick. Jeez, you'd wonder had you ever won an All-Ireland?
Yeah, we waited long enough to get that first one. But Matt, before we let Diarmuid go, I'm sure you'll be happy if his prediction comes true.
Well, yeah, I said it earlier on the cast, Jack. My summation of it is Limerick will have to produce a performance better than the 3 performances to date in the championship. Now, last Sunday was the best performance of the 3, which is encouraging, but it has to go up another notch. Anything other than a top-class performance from Limerick, and I feel they're in trouble, Jack. Yeah, but I expect that they will produce that performance and just get over the line.
Yeah, I expect them to get over the line as well. But Diarmuid, we're 41 minutes here. I told you 25, but you would have known that was a bit of an underscore, an undersell on that. A huge thank you to you, Diarmuid, for coming on and giving your time and giving the insight into the Rebel camp. I hope you're right with your prediction and that it's the end of your season. You can be happy looking at the Sam Maguire for the rest of the year. But it promises to be a very exciting game this Sunday. And look, it could go either way. Look,
Mayor, thanks very much, lads, for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I think, to be fair, I think that hopefully we'll be all blessed enough to be sitting in there on Sunday. And I hope I'm very wrong. And I hope that Pat Ryan points it out to me that I've been wrong. And I'll take it on the chin and move on. I do think we have a chance. I think we have a very good chance. But I just look, we're not favourites. That's the fact, right? But look, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's great to have a Munster Championship knockout game, even within the round robin. We got a load of games, and we still have a knockout game in the final round. So we look forward to it. Diarmuid, it's been a pleasure, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, lads.
Thank you.
Cheers, Dermot.
Now, Diarmuid Sheehan giving us a lengthy view into the opposition camp ahead of a mouth-watering game this Sunday in the 2 Gaelic grounds, Matt. Look, we went through it in huge depth there, but anything else you want to say on this game, or just wait?
No, that's my summary of it. And you know, I believe, Jack, that even though Cork lost last weekend, they were going well in the championship. They'd got a win, they'd got a draw against Tipperary. We'll say they'd got out of jail to a certain degree in the draw with Tipperary. I don't think Cork lost anything in they lost 2 points, but in terms of their progress, I don't think they lost anything against Clare. So it's all building up to being, you know, what we have on Sunday is a full-blooded, old-style knockout Munster Championship game, because you have to assume that Tipperary are going to beat Waterford. It will be a result of seismic proportions. Were Tipperary to be beaten, I just can't see it happening. I think Waterford are struggling at the minute. Nobody takes pleasure in seeing any county struggling. They're struggling at underage. They're struggling in football. Obviously, the county, you know, and it's not for me to tell them what to do. They obviously need a rethink down there. But it's as far as, and this is the approach Limerick are going to take. It's, you know, there are a few permutations. Like, were Tipperary to lose, the winner at the Gaelic grounds goes into the Munster final.
Yeah, I think that's
correct. And Tipperary slip into 3rd place. So, but that is unlikely. I think the focus will be on this is a knockout Munster full-blooded Munster Championship knockout game. And Limerick at their best will win it. I think anything less, they're in trouble.
Yeah, and talking about being at their best, look, Limerick have been off the pace, but still has been a couple of lads that have nearly just single-handedly driven it and stood out for me again. You mentioned Cathal O'Neill the last day; he was brilliant. But for the second game in a row, I thought Nicky Quaid, Tom Morrissey, and William O'Donoghue just played out of their skins. There was good performances. Other players, I thought Dan Morrissey was very good at fullback, and Aaron Glenn was exceptional whenever he got the ball. But Quaid, Morrissey, and O'Donoghue were very good against Clare, nearly brought Limerick over the line. And same again, that if you would just get a couple around them to get to that level, you'd be thinking Limerick will be okay this Sunday.
Yeah, that's true. But this is one of the trademarks of a great team. When you're in the trenches, there's always somebody else, someone, 2 or 3 or 4 will come out of the pack and dig you out of it. And that's been happening this year. And you're just hoping for the day that it will come together, maybe ideally for the 15 players, which it has done on a number of occasions in the past. And you'd hope that maybe Sunday might be one of those days.
Yeah, and the sight of the red jersey has often spurred Limerick into life. Like, we'll never ever forget the 2021 All-Ireland final, and the game was over at half-time. Now, I'm looking forward to a full-blooded Munster Championship game, but if this was done and dusted in Limerick's favour after 35 minutes, you wouldn't be saying no to that, would you?
I certainly wouldn't be saying no to it,
Yeah, because there's tension in the air, even in the build-up, that we've been so blessed with Limerick winning everything all before them, and a lot of time fairly comfortably, that when they aren't performing, there is that bit of doubt. And we talked about the aura that surrounded this team and the Dublin team, and that'll give Cork a bit of confidence that Limerick aren't at their best. They know there could be an onslaught, an avalanche that they won't be ready for, but there's also that glimmer that we all have mentioned today, that if they're not at that level, there is a chance.
Yeah. Well, I think Limerick really have to have a better performance than last Sunday. And as you say, more players. There's a couple of players, we'll say at the moment, and it's fair to say, are not at their best at the moment. But we have seen this in the past. We have seen Limerick players in the past dip in form and then thunder back into it. And you'll be hoping that might happen on Sunday.
Yeah, and on that, there's, Peter Casey didn't start last day and came on and made an impact. So did 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘭𝘴 𝘰𝘪𝘢, which is great to see, and David Reedy. Do you think Limerick will again, like Cork are doing with Shane Kingston, hold him in reserve, or could we see, some of those players starting and then you're looking for a big impact from one of your star players from the bench?
Well, I think anyway, personally, that it is very, very, very hard to name a Limerick team without a fully fit Peter Casey. If Peter Casey is fully fit, which he obviously is, and obviously the reason why he didn't start last week was because I suppose John Kiely, it was widely known that he had, that he was in trouble coming up to the game. In terms of, was it injury or illness? And but a fully fit Peter Casey, in my opinion, Jack, has to be included.
Who isn't then?
It's not an option.
Who misses out if Peter has to start?
This is what I threw out. And I honestly, I'm not going to second John Kiely and Paul Kinnerk and those, but I think Peter Casey has to come in, and I also think that Cathal O'Neill has to start.
Yeah, like there's big calls to be made, and the right men are in charge to make those calls. So
could you see it's above our pay grade, Jack? But you could you see Keane Lynch maybe move to midfield or something? Could you see Kyle Hayes coming up centre forward? Like, there are so many different things that may happen out there, But in my opinion, it's a no-brainer. A fit Peter Casey starts.
Yeah, we'll have to wait patiently until 9 o'clock on Thursday night or 9 Friday morning to see. And look, there could be a late change after that. So it'll be interesting to see the makeup of the Limerick team. But I suppose the final thought, we've nearly an hour done on the game itself. If Limerick play to their best, we'll have more summer to see, I think is the message, that it won't come to an end this Sunday. And I suppose leaving a final note is a big appeal to Limerick people, just first and foremost to get to the Gaelic grounds. I don't have any fear of that, but to make noise. It's a home game for Limerick. As John said, it's been a journey between the fans and the players. They've given us so many days out. Entire summers have been planned around All-Ireland finals, and we've been so blessed and lucky to get there, that when this team needs it from the stands, that they get their appropriate response this Sunday at 4 o'clock in the Gaelic grounds. But I suppose it is mouth-watering, Matt. It's hard to wait, but we've 3 or 4 more days to go until we get there. But it promised to be another Munster Championship cracker in a championship that has delivered so much. But with 51 minutes of hurling done, we'll park it there. And please God, this time next week, we'll be looking back at Limerick's win over Cork and hopefully a Munster final, but at the least a place in the All-Ireland series against either Carlow or Offaly. So the best of luck to John, any side this weekend. And please God, we'll be talking about a win this time next week. A team that did win at the weekend and made a 2 from 2 was the Limerick footballers. They beat Carlow 119-14 in Carlow, 2 from 2 in the Tailteann Cup, safely through to the quarterfinals. The only team into the quarterfinals already. Neither of us are there, so you're relying on reports and what you heard and updates and all that. But seemed pretty comfortable from Limerick. And we had spoke about their ability to go away to places and put in good performances. And they went under the radar, Matt, coming into it in terms of national headlines and I suppose national recognition. But teams are starting to sit up and take notice of this Limerick team.
They are, and a PTR team wouldn't sit up and take notice. They were scarcely mentioned Saturday or Sunday. I don't know if they had any cameras there. It was one of the few games that there wasn't. But that's another thing, Jack. Well done to the Limerick footballers. And when we were analysing the Tailteann Cup at the outset, before the competition started, we were saying that they should be in the mix for the semi-finals at least. And they're only one step away from it now at the moment. And it was a very good win in Carlow, and it backs up the win over Longford. Now, Limerick had a very, very bright start and went 4 or 5 points up, but allowed Carlow back into it in the second half of the first half, or we'll say in the last 10 minutes. And by half time, it was 8 points apiece. But Limerick introduced, and this will give you an idea of we talk about benches. And I know in normal circumstances, were it not for injury, these two wouldn't be on the bench. Limerick were in a position to introduce Ian Corbett and Hugh Burke at half-time, which, if you talk about football heavyweights, these are two of them. But immediately after half-time, Limerick got a goal. Worked the ball up the field. Paul Maher, who had a very, very good game and was subsequently named on Team of the Week, he finished it. And just speaking of Team of the Week, Peter Nash was also named in it. Nash is having a great run of form with Limerick footballers at present. And they tacked on 3 or 4 points at that stage. So basically, they very quickly put the game out of Carlow's reach early in the second half. But I suppose it's fair to say that the position that Limerick find themselves in this competition at this juncture is nothing more than we expected, because they very, very, very quickly, Jack, put the disappointment of the league campaign to bed and parked it. And really turned over a new leaf when the championship came around, as we saw with their performance against Clare. And the big question, and the Tailteann Cup is all about embracing the competition, you know, and there are still negative vibes going around about the Tailteann Cup. Would people stop it? This is a very, very important competition. Very, very important competition. And we saw what it did for Westmeath last year when they won, the way it lifted the whole county. And this is an opportunity for counties, rather than going into a straight qualifier knockout, to prolong their season and get games. And the whole premise of improving counties is to get games and play games. And Limerick are getting 3 extra games now. The games against Longford and the games against Carlow, very, very valuable games. And now they have a game against Wicklow, which is a dead rubber, a total dead rubber. For the simple reason that Limerick are through no matter what happens, Wicklow are out no matter what happens. But it's a game. It's going to give them an opportunity. How Mark Fitzgerald is going to approach it in terms of using the personnel at his disposal. Is he going to go for a settled team, or try and have a settled team? Now, Ian Corbett has missed 2 games, but he's back, and there's no question about it. Ian Corbett is back in the team. Hugh Burke, a fully fit Hugh Burke, is also back in the team. So suddenly we have options. Yeah, and obviously Mark Fitzgerald will be trying some of those options, I presume, as against Wicklow. And it's on Sunday week, Jack, in Portlaoise.
Sunday week in Portlaoise at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Picking up on your points there, Matt. It's very valuable, and they've room to manoeuvre now with the game in Wicklow, knowing that they're through. But when you look at that squad depth now that Limerick have, there's huge strength in depth. You mentioned Ian and Hugh coming off the bench. Robbie Burke is another one back from injury. Killian Ryan is getting closer. You the likes of Tony McCarthy, Cormac Wolfe making his debut, a very good Limerick under-20 player in recent years. We didn't see Gordon Brown, or Davy Lyons on the field. That this Limerick team, slowly but surely, they're starting to get their players back. There's a huge squad depth there. It lends to competition. They're in a competition that they know that they can win. So it's really looking bright for Limerick.
It is looking bright for them. And as I said, where the position that they're in now, Jack, is nothing more than we expected. Provided, but we did put the caveat in, if you recall, that they reproduce the form and build on the form that they showed against Clare in the championship. And that they have done, and done it spectacularly well. So, Mark Fitzgerald and his management team, and indeed the football fraternity in Limerick, must be very, very happy with where they're at the moment. It's a dream situation if you're in a group of 4 and you have qualified top of the group with a game to spare. It's dreamland stuff. They've done so on merit. So really looking forward now to who they will be playing in the quarter-final.
Yeah, and also we'll have the game against Wicklow to come before that, and there'll obviously be preliminary quarter-finals. A lot of teams still to be knocked out, but Limerick are safe in the knowledge that they'll be there in the last 8, and they'll be 1 away from a semi-final. And it's been a long time since Limerick football were in a championship semi-final. So, look, I presume the preparations are going well. Training will be good. I presume spirits are in, our high spirits in training. So, long may that continue for Mark Fitz. And the footballers.
And the semi-final check is in Croke Park.
Yeah, so we got a taste of it in the league final last year. So it'll be nice to get back there for a championship game. Talking about championship games, Matt, the Masters are out this Saturday. They're playing Kerry in Killeedy in the second round of the championship. So the best luck to Anthony McCarthy and that team. That game throws in at 2 o'clock in Killeedy to play the Kerry Masters. I'm not sure will the Kerry Masters of any of the players we know from years gone by, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of All-Ireland winners on the show in Killeedy. I'm not sure. Do you know any of the players they have at their disposal?
I do, Jack, and I'll come to it in a minute. But like Limerick Masters just came together this year, and we had him in here with Anthony McCarthy and Maurice O'Connor in here with us in the podcast, and like there's a whole wave of enthusiasm behind them. They have a very dedicated group. Pre-championship, they beat both Clare and Cork in challenge games, and then in the championship they went to Waterford and won by 3-8 to 111 in the first round. Now they face Kerry. Kerry will probably be the biggest test that they will face, but Kerry, it's Kerry's first game, as they had a bye in the first round. So Kerry will be coming into it cold, but there are two former All-Ireland winners on the Kerry team. Aidan O'Mahony, who has 5 All-Ireland medals, and William Kirby, who has 2 All-Ireland medals. I've seen the Kerry panel, and I'd have to say that apart from those two, most of the others are pretty unknown to me anyway, at any level playing with Kerry. But, you know, Kerry are going to be Kerry, Jack, you know. But Limerick are in a very, very, very good state of readiness. And we wish the lads the very, very best of luck. It's on in Park Eden Efa in Rahina at 2 o'clock on Saturday. And I would appeal to people to come out and support the lads. Like they've put in a huge effort since last January.
Yeah, hopefully they can continue a good start to their first season. Also out this Saturday are the junior Camogie side. They play Offaly in the first round of the championship. That's at 5 o'clock in Cappamore. So the best of luck to David Eady and his side. And also out this weekend on Sunday at 1 o'clock in Mallow, the Limerick Ladies footballers are in the Munster Senior B final where they play Clare. So a chance for silverware there for the ladies footballer early on in the season.
Oh yeah, chance of silverware, and they have played Clare already in the group phase of the competition, and it ended in a draw at a Clare venue. So it's all it's all set up nicely for the final. And Limerick in their last game had a very good win over Kerry and Cardle last Friday night. But going into that game, Limerick had already qualified for the final. But we wish the girls the very best of luck, and it's these games are great preparation for Graham Shine and the girls heading into the All Ireland series, which is around the corner, where they're grouped with Kilkenny, Sligo, and Down in the junior championship. So the junior championship it's just around the corner, but the junior championship for Camogie has arrived, and Limerick will host Offaly, as you rightly said, in Cappamore on Saturday evening at 5 o'clock. And this is a repeat of the last game of the league, which Limerick won comprehensively in McNeville Park. And I was just doing a bit of probing into it, and I just see that Offaly recently won the Leinster final. They had a very big win in the Leinster final over Louth. And it was essentially the same team that went down comprehensively to Limerick in the league. But Limerick have had a very important game last Sunday in preparation for this. They played Tipperary in the Munster final in Holy Cross and went down 1-9 to 8 points. So it's ideal preparation for the opening game of the championship. And in the championship, Limerick are in a group with Armagh, Offaly, and Mayo. Now Armagh would be very, very strong, and Saturday is Limerick's only home game. I can't understand, and as you're probably sick of hearing me saying this, that when there are 3 games, Limerick have only won at home. But you know. And then it's the first game, but look, we'll take it, and it is what it is. But Limerick have been strengthened since the league, Jack. They've got a number of the minors who have come up, who weren't eligible during the league because of their commitment to the Limerick minor team. And Megan Ryan has come back into the junior fold, which is a big asset as well. So, yeah, they're in a good place. I would expect Limerick to get off to a winning start, Jack, if that's the nub of your question.
Yeah, well, I was going to get there. Obviously, the juniors getting their campaign underway against Offaly on Saturday in Cappamore. The best of luck to the junior Camogie, the senior lady footballers, the masters footballers over the weekend. And it'll all tie up nicely into the big game of the weekend. There's obviously going to be in the Gaelic grounds, probably expecting the bones of 50,000 people to get to the Ennis Road. So get in there nice and early and get perched, because it's going to be full-blooded, as we said, Matt, this Sunday, a do-or-die game. We're not used to it, but if they come out the right side of it, won't be any bothers to us. I don't think there's any other business for this morning's podcast. An hour and 5 on the clock. An awful lot of that is dedicated to the hurling. A huge thank you to Diarmuid Sheehan for his time. Big thank you to Noel's Men. A big thank you as always to Noel's Menswear for sponsoring the podcast. Big thank you to everyone tuning in, watching, listening, whatever you do. Again, make sure if you're on YouTube to like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications. It just helps improve how the video is, I suppose, portrayed on YouTube. On Facebook, like and share. On Twitter, make sure to like and retweet. On Spotify, if you'd rather listen than watch us for the hour, you can listen to Spotify, and make sure to follow us and click the bell for notifications, not to miss out on any of the good content. But Matt, I think that's that for us. It's only a case of now wait for the weekend and wait for Cork on Sunday and all those other games, the Masters, the ladies football, and Camogie, in anticipation of that hurling. But for now, a big thank you to everyone for tuning in. As always, a huge thank you to you, Matt. Thank you to Diarmuid for getting involved. I hope it's a good weekend and a successful weekend for Limerick, and that when we get back for episode 235, that we've plenty of wins to look back on. So thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Jack.
The impression of the game you get out of it, what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tommaso Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the 𝘢𝘴𝘴𝘰𝘪𝘢𝘵 today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘯𝘴 leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.